My name is Tish Reed, and we are going to be working on the theme of vases. And so what I wanted to show you today was just some playful ways on creating vases, almost as like a secondary sort of thought when you're creating a floral. And that's primarily the way that I paint. Is I don't really look at anything when I'm painting. I tend to just paint from my heart, and I make decisions based upon what makes me happy. And I just find that this is really a place where I can kind of get more in touch with that sacred creative voice inside of me and create something that is much more than just the work on the paper, but it's the work that's going on inside of me through the process itself. So I want us to dive in. I've got a couple of sheets of watercolor paper here that I've ripped down into roughly, I don't know, 6 by 8. And I brought a couple because I wasn't really sure exactly what I was going to do today, for example. But I also pulled some of my, I make creative painting prompts for my students and that I use at workshops and during classes. And I wanted to read 2 of them to you. This one's from the Pure Play section, and it says, "There is no right way. So just remind yourself there's no right way or a wrong way to create. Trust your instincts and just simply play." Give yourself permission to paint badly today. If that's where you're at, just give yourself permission to create. Maybe watercolors isn't normally your medium. That's what we're going to be using today. But if that's not normally your medium, just give yourself permission to play without really judging what you're putting down onto the paper. And the other one I wanted to read to you is from the Expressive Expression section, which says, "Celebrate the process. Let the messy, unfinished stages shine through, and don't hide them, but instead highlight them." And I love painting from that place because that's how you really start to begin storytelling on the canvas. So without further delay, let's just dive in. I'm going to put these over here. I'm going to mist the paper just a little bit. I feel like I do that on canvas too because I feel like it just helps the paint to lay down more fluidly and smoothly when we're putting things down. I'm going to grab just a big brush, a big kind of moppy watercolor brush. I'm going to put it into the water. And I think I'm going to go with, oh, you'll notice our paper is curling. So one trick to get past that is just to spray the back as well. And you'll notice, see how it's starting to come down. So that's exactly what we want. So now we have moisture on the front and back side, and that'll prevent your curling. Okay, so we have our big old mop brush, and I am just gonna dip it in the first color of paint I see here. I'm gonna use kind of this orangey yellow. And maybe you haven't seen this type of watercolor before. They're just pre-mixed colors. They're a liquid form of watercolor. I like to use them because I'm a little bit lazy. And I do some of the mixing on the palette instead. So I'm actually gonna kind of like just flop my brush down a couple of times. And that, my friends, is gonna become my vase. So I'm gonna put that over here and rinse out my big brush because I don't think I'm gonna need that for a while. And put that down over here. It's always good to have some paper toweling around to absorb the water, or if you want to blot the color, if you feel like you get too far ahead. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to ignore my vase for a minute, and I just want to start working on putting down some bold colors, and these will become our flowers. So I'm going to grab a slightly smaller brush. This is number 10 brush. And I'm going to, let's see, this looks like a good color here. Maybe I'll mix a little bit with that yellow we put down. And I'm just going to start creating some shapes. And let's see, I'm going to go into a slightly different color. And this is exactly how I create flowers when I'm on the canvas. I really just create sort of a puddle of color. So don't feel like you have to get fussy and detailed at all. I'm going to grab just a little bit of my tissue and just kind of blot the very top of this piece here. I felt like it got a little wet. And then I want to go with something a bit bolder, maybe in the purples, because I have like this yellow and orange. And so I'm going to travel across the color wheel and look for a color that's not there. So I'm going to add that. This one is called Plum, I think. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that on my brush. I'm going to add a little bit of that red color I had before. Whenever you pull in some of the other colors, they're naturally going to sort of integrate with each other a little bit better. So here I'm just adding a few more of these smaller flowers. Okay. One of the things I like to do too is get a little bit of a blue. So I'm going to choose maybe, I think I have an aqua over here. Let's see, I'll put that one over there. So I'm going to use a little bit of this aqua. Oh, that looks good. And I'm just going to drop in. I find if you just delineate the centers of the flowers just a little bit with some of the dark blue, then it gives you that feeling of the center of the flower. Okay, the next thing I want to do is just add a little bit of greenery around. So I'm going to go the blue, the turquoise that I was just using, and mix that with some of this yellow. But I'm also going to add a little bit of red to kind of desaturate that a little bit. And let's see, I'm just going to play. So I'm just loosely putting in some floral like stems that might be down here. Just using the side of my brush to create different marks. So not really holding the paintbrush in like a very traditional way. I think maybe I'll put a little bit up through here. All right, so next thing I want to do is add a little bit more of this blue to the greenery. And I think I'm just going to make a slightly different shape here. Maybe this is some silver dollar eucalyptus or something like that. So the next thing I want to do now that our watercolor is dry is I'm going to grab a fine liner pen, a little micro fine liner pen. I have a little pack here. This is a number 6, which is kind of a wide tip. Regular contour drawing is where I'm looking at my paper, but I don't want to lift up my pen more than I have to. So I'm connecting the different areas of the drawing and giving a sense of like continuity and unity and playfulness, because it's also a little bit sort of childlike, I guess, in the way that you draw. And so it creates some really fun shapes along the way. So we're going to just practice this here. I'm thinking that I just want to kind of build my vase. Bit like this. And then what I want to encourage you to do, I like to go over it a couple of times till I get the shape that I really like. And you could add some pattern here if that's something you want to do, or you could use like Posca pens or even some more watercolor if you wanted to put some pattern on that. But now I'm going to move up to the flowers themselves. And so I want to make sure that I put in some sort of stems, first of all. And secondly, I want to now use the same pen and I'm going to start going around the leaves. So I'm going to go around this one down here, and then I'm going to go up and kind of attach it there. come back down and then do this one. And maybe I'll come back up and do this one, down, and again. So again, I have this continuous line that's sort of building my foliage over here. I have this little guy that's kind of hanging out by himself. So I'm just going to draw around him. For some reason, I think my daughter has been into my fine line pen, so I'm going to choose a different one that has a little bit, it's not quite as dried out as that one is. So let's see what else I have here. Let's choose, let's see if this one will work for us. Perfect. Okay, I went with a number 8. And we're going to do the same thing over here. I like this one, it's even chunkier. Nice. And see how I'm leaving some gapping? I'm not trying to follow exactly the leaf where the paint is. I like leaving some space there, especially if you might go back in and paint the background or something. That sort of like posterization look of having a little bit of white space around your paint is really fun. So the next thing I'm going to do here is just move on to this top bit of foliage. Okay, that looks really good. And next, I'm going to play with the flowers. I love to do this too, where I just created this sort of like nebulous look of a blob of color, right? But if I go into the flower and I start creating some of these sort of paths of this line going back and forth, now it gives me the appearance that I have these little petals that are taking shape on the front side of the flower. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. And then again up here. And then lastly, I think I'm gonna leave the 2 red ones alone because they're so dark anyway. And I kind of like the way that they are just this deep color without a whole lot of detail on them. But I am now going to go over these little guys. Perfect. So I think maybe I want to do one finishing touch, which is I'm going to grab, let's see, do I want to do purple? Maybe I'll just go in with some more orange. That looks good. So just with my orange Posca pen, I'm going to, I just want to create a few dots. I was deciding exactly what I wanted to do, but it's best, honestly, just not to overthink it too terribly much. And put a few dots up here. Even just that small detail really helps. And then to bring the pot back into the flowers, I'm just going to add a little bit of the Posca marker here to the edge of this flower. We're going to add a little bit of like a grounding wash, very light. Trying to see what colors I have here. Very light. Just going to put a little wash here to kind of, so our vase doesn't look like it's floating in the air. And just to save time, I'm going to give it a little pat pat. And lastly, because we are the artists here and we've made this unique creation, we're going to give it a little sign too. So make sure, put your signature on it. And I hope you think it is just beautiful. But this is just such a fun way to play when we're not really worrying, we're not overthinking, we're not trying to make things perfect. Instead, we're embracing that imperfection and then using it as something to really play off of. All right, let's do one more. So we're going to do the same process. We're going to mist our paper with some water. Do both sides this time. That back over. I've gotten a little bit too much water on that side. Okay, so let's get out our big mop brush again. Probably should change my water, but you know, again, lazy. Okay, so I have my mop brush with my ultramarine blue, and I'm going to bloop, which I can tell already my page is a little damp. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Maybe I'll make these into more like, you've seen those vases that go out like into kind of like balls that are stacked on one another, so kind of liking that. Okie doke. So I'm going to put my brush away, and I am going to go ahead and go into making some of my flowers. I did get a little carried away with the water there. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is, since I have a blue vase, it might be nice to do some orange flowers. If we go across the color wheel like that. So I'm going to go find some orange. Oh, let's see here. I think and we're going to create our flowers as just these like loose, just a touch that color in there, get a little darker. Make these little loose petals of color. And then maybe I'll add a little more of that, so that all my flowers are different looking. And then let's see, let's go. Maybe we'll add just a touch of that up here. And let's do a little bit more of just maybe this color by itself, which I think was this plum. You can always test your colors on a spare sheet of paper. So I think I like that. So I'm going to go and make another big guy right here. It's always a good idea to create a variety of shapes, a variety of sizes. Wherever you can push variety in a composition, it's always going to be successful. So if that's through scale, if that is achieved by color, by the quality of the marks that you're making, or changing up your tools, all those things will create really excellent overall compositions for you. Make your piece look a little more interesting. So I think I'm going to add just one more of these guys kind of over here. And maybe I'll feel like there's kind of this blank space right here. So I'm going to address that by maybe going back into this red. Again, don't overthink it. Just put some color down. It will be okay. I promise you, it will be okay. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to move into creating some foliage. So again, that's some of the green. And I had a little bit of turquoise and yellow mixed together, I think, to make that. So I am just going to start down in this area. I like creating these sort of long cascades of leaves coming down and these different boughs of greenery. Using the side of your brush is always a great option. I think I'm going to change up the color a little bit. So I'm going to add some of that, but then I'm going to add some of the yellow to it, a little bit of the red. I'm actually trying to make a little bit of a gray color. It's actually pretty good. Let's try that. It's pretty good. So I'm going to water it down just a little bit more. And again, make some of those sort of eucalyptus looking elements coming down. And I think maybe I'll put some of that up here as well. You can see I'm just slightly overlapping some of the watercolor marks, but I'm not doing it too much because my watercolor is still very wet. And let's see, I feel like I need to then go back. So my vase is this blue color, right? So I think I want to go back into that blue, which was, I think, the ultramarine blue, which now looks more like green. So I'll put out some fresh. There we go. So I'm going to add a little bit more of that to my floral centers. And again, I'm not trying to fill up that whole space, but rather just dropping in some shadow. To all the flowers. And I think maybe while I have a little bit of that blue, I might go up here, mostly just talking to myself. I'm gonna make some bigger. Okay, I feel like that looks really great. I'm going to, again, hit this with a hairdryer, and then we'll come back and start adding some detail. Okay, so we have this beautiful watercolor, which has these sort of like flowy, smooth, soft outlines, which I just love. But now we're going to add some additional character to this drawing by using our fine tip pen to do some fine lining around our details. And we're going to do that again by doing some contour drawing over top of it. So remember I was saying I thought like doing one of those vases, I don't know, is that like the 70s where they sort of had that, I don't know, it reminds me of something I've seen at my grandmother's house for sure. The little stack of 3 balls that makes a vase. So again, I'm just kind of going over those pieces again. And let me tell you, I do this a lot because I have a trimmer in my hand. It's not really noticeable to a lot of people, but I've had it since I was in my 20s. And so I find drawing very mechanically sort of, you know, straight lines. This is really, really tough for me. So this sort of drawing I find builds character and some story to the painting. And it doesn't bother me a bit that I can't draw a straight line, but I do think it's funny to say that I'm an artist who can't draw a straight line. We are going to do the same thing now with our foliage. Okay, and we'll just keep moving around here. And then I think I'll do the same thing up here. I think with these, I'm going to draw some lines down the middle so they look a little bit chunkier. And so I'm thinking with the flowers, I might try a little bit different tool this time. I think I'm going to use this white gel pen. Let me test it. I think that'll look good. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to add a few just dots through here where it's a little dark to kind of come down onto my vase area. And then I'm going to do that same sort of contour drawing a little bit on the flowers. I think that's a fun contrast. So I found my gold gel pen. Let me test that one too and make sure it looks good. And I'm going to use the gold to go over some of this foliage that's on the outside here. I think that'll be a nice contrast too. So feel free, I'm demonstrating some ideas on what you could use, but I mean, really treat this as a mixed media project. You can add in whatever you want to bring to this. So whatever you feel inspired to use, by all means, just get it out and have some fun. Okay, I think that looks great. Okay, and then I think I want to do a little more detail on the vase, but I'm a little nervous about what to do. But I need to just remind myself that it doesn't really matter. It is paint, it is fine. And so one of the things I was thinking was, and I'm just going to test it over here, just doing some lines like this with a Stabilo. And these are water soluble, so I could move it around and play with it. One of the other things I was thinking about doing was just getting the container back for the watercolor and just putting some lines down, which I actually think I might do that. I actually think that might be the way to go. And if you don't have this sort of thing, just using like a, you know, our page is dry now, so if you go back with a thin liner brush with some darker blue, it's gonna create those lines for you. So I think I just want to loosely give us a little more character to this vase. I think that's perfect. Perfect, so good. Okay. And then we don't want our vase to float around, right? So we're just gonna get a little bit of, let's use some of our orange maybe. And we're just gonna come in down here and our blue bled into it, but it's fine, it's all good. So, and again, I'm just gonna grab my, let's see, I think I'll go back to this one. And I'm just gonna sign. Okay, we have some pretty beautiful paintings here. So I hope you have so much fun with this and that you realize that vases don't have to be so technical and perspectively perfect and all those things. So I hope you have a lot of fun with this, and I hope to see you over in my neck of the woods at createtobreathe.com. That's a place where I host creative courses that are just like this, where we're doing painting on canvases, we're playing, we're experimenting, and we're discovering new ways to incorporate joy into our painting process with freedom, no rules, just having a heck of a lot of fun and creating work that really feels like more authentically ourselves. So if you want to give me a visit, fantastic. I also have a little discount code for you to use on my new Boundless Blooms course, which I absolutely know you'll love. And these are some of the examples behind me. So again, I hope you have had so much fun creating these. I know I have. If you want to add these to your sketchbook, you can just get a little washi tape and put them in. All right, thanks. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Okay, so I'm notorious for doing this. I wanted to go back and add a little bit more to this guy over here because he was feeling a little bit sad next to his friend who seemed to be taking up more of the piece of paper. So I'm adding a little bit of just kind of some extra purpley color that was on my palette here. and just creating some more of those outlines moving outside of our color field. So they kind of look like they're these little petals that are coming off. I think while I have this color still on my brush, I'm just going to outline a few of these little leaves, just going around kind of loosely, just to bring the color around more than anything. So, and these are all techniques that I use when I'm painting too. And then I think what I'm going to do while I have this sort of purpley color is I'm going to add some stripey doos across there, and then make this a bit more bold down here. I think that makes me happier. So we can always take a moment to step back and look at something and then see, like, okay, what do I want to change? What is really calling to me? Maybe what is distracting me a little bit? Which I'm still thinking that I could add a little bit of this orangey yellow right here around just the centers. And then maybe I'll bring that color down into a couple of these leaves as well. Don't you love it? Isn't it just so fun to play with those little details? Okay, I, again, hope you had fun, and I'll see you over Create to Breathe. I'm Tish Reed. Take care.